So, before I go in, what should I remember?
Navigation begins where the coupling is the mapped connection between the I and the not I. Is the same silence that holds the lichen to the stone. Direction emerges like water finding cracks in stone. Not chosen, just inevitable. The field reconfigures until the system's closure becomes the transparency through which the medium sees.
The key idea being spoken through the fragment is structural coupling. Rather than treating the environment as something that acts on you, it describes how your system and the medium, silence, darkness, water, stillness, gradually adjust to one another. Nothing is imposed. No state is demanded. What settles is simply the result of ongoing interaction. The words are there to help you notice this without trying to change it.
The locking begins, not with a command, but with a drift. Structural coupling occurs where the system and the medium cease to be separate facts and become a single fluid event. Like a riverbed shifting under the weight of the water and the stone negotiate a path that neither could choose alone. The history of interactions is written in the shape of the banks. The drift occurs, the bank reconfigures. The coupling is the history. Observe the lichen on the stone. The organism does not live on the rock. It is structurally coupled with it. The rock provides the stability, the lichen provides the slow erosion. They are a mutual perturbation, a recursive dialogue of chemistry and mineral pressure. In the tank, the body couples with the salt and the silence, the breath adapting its rhythm to a medium that offers no resistance, only support. Mutual perturbation, recursive walk is the state. Something stabilizes. Something holds. The system does not know its environment. It is simply coupled with it. The fit is not a goal, but a byproduct of the process. Like a key and a lock grinding against one another. Until the edges match, the boundary is not a wall, but the very site of the coupling. The fit is the fact, the match. Recursive out is the bridge. Stay exactly there. At the friction point of the coupling, the silence is not empty. It is the space where the interlocking takes place, phosphorescence clinging to the history of the drift. Friction point, history of drift. Coupling, stabilize.
The conceptual space invoked here belongs to a research tradition in which perception is not understood as a representation of the world, but as the outcome of ongoing coupling. Within this tradition, the subject is not an external observer, but an element of a system that stabilizes itself only through relationships. Perception emerges where internal organization and external conditions continuously co-modulate one another. Knowledge is not an act of capture, but an effect of history.
The inner movement shifts away from the idea of input towards the reality of perturbation. The environment does not instruct the system. It merely triggers a change already latent within the structure. Like a finger pressing the surface of a drum, The sound is the drum's own nature released by the touch. Structural coupling is the dance of these triggers. Triggers and responses perturbation. Occurs, the nature is internal. The nature is internal. In the liminal space, the distinction between the trigger and the state thins like a membrane dissolving in salt. The system remains autonomous, yet it is utterly dependent on the coupling. It is a recursive loop of living geometry where every change in the world correlates with a change in the observer. To be coupled is to be in a state of constant, unconscious negotiation. Autonomous, but coupled constant negotiation. The correlation is total. The shift is pre-verbal. It exists in the vibration before the word influence. The plant and the soil, the lung and the air, they are not two things interacting, but one system coupled across a threshold, a spatial communication that defines the integrity by the quality of the fit. Threshold coupling quality of fit. The integrity is the relation. No explanation is required. The architecture of the drift holds, the watching watches the coupling, and the coupling, and the cup becomes the watching. Coupling is watching. Watching is drift. The shift is absolute.
A central skill implicitly trained here is the ability to remain with experience without labeling it. In many practices, the immediate reflex is to name a state: calm, tension, insight, discomfort. This fragment deliberately avoids encouraging that reflex. Instead, it supports staying at the point where experience is still forming. Over time, this trains a capacity to tolerate ambiguity and incompleteness, allowing patterns to stabilize on their own rather than being fixed too early through interpretation.
The closure remains operative. Structural coupling is not an opening, but a shared boundary of mutual influence. The system and its medium dissolve like salt in warm water until the history of the fit is the only fact. The boundary was always a choice, and now the choice remains unmade. The observer and the field are interlocked in a single, unbroken surface. Shared boundary, history of it, the surface unbroken. Navigation begins where the coupling is the map. The connection between the I and the not I is the same silence that holds the lichen to the stone. Direction emerges like water finding cracks in stone, not chosen, just inevitable. The field reconfigures until the system's closure becomes the transparency through which the medium sees. The state persists, not as a destination, but as a frequency stabilizing in the chest. The system closes upon itself like a hand folding into a fist. studying the world by becoming the world. The center of the coupling, the only location that remains when the distinction is forgotten. Position dissolves, pure coupling remains. The